Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're tuning in, you're clearly looking for that essential knowledge, the stuff that cuts through the usual business noise.
That's the goal.
And today we are definitely drilling down right into the engine room, you could say, of pretty much every successful business, the strategic blueprint of operations management.
The engine room. I like that. It fits.
Yeah, but this deep dive, it isn't really about the day-to-day stuff, meeting quotas or fixing machines.
No, not the tactical weeds.
Exactly. It's about the long-term architectural choice, the decision that really defines what a company is.
Right.
We're essentially unpacking that big strategic fork in the road every single business has to face. Are they going to build their whole operation to be like the absolute cheapest?
The lowest cost provider.
Yeah, focusing only on volume, efficiency, squeezing every penny out. Or are they going to go the other way? Structure everything to deliver something unique. Premium quality, special features, things that justify a higher price.
That's the fundamental choice. Cost or uniqueness.
And that commitment, that strategic choice cost leadership or differentiation, that's arguably the single biggest decision operations ever makes.
Absolutely. It cascades down into everything.
Right. It shapes the supply chains, who they hire, how they train, everything.
And that really is the heart of it. We often talk about strategy like it's, just marketing slogans or fancy financial charts.
Uh-huh.
But the strategy, it gets made real or it fails right there.
Yeah.
In operations.
Okay.
It's the function that actually turns the inputs, the raw materials, the labor, into the outputs, the product or service. So it fundamentally dictates what the business can do.
It's capability.
Exactly. It's capability.
Yeah.
And today, we're focusing on the long-term approach, how you set up that capability, the blueprint, as you called it, and crucially, the pressures that shape that blueprint.
Okay, good. So let's start by setting the scene. To really get the strategic importance of operations, you kind of have to see where it fits in the whole company structure.
Right. Its place in the ecosystem.
And maybe more importantly, the demands placed on it. Often conflicting demands,
Right.
right, from other departments.
Yeah, conflicting is often the word. So to frame operations, let's look at those four essential pillars, the core functions you find in almost any business.
Okay.
They're all interconnected, highly interdependent, and operations. It often finds itself right in the middle, juggling these competing needs.
All right, let's tick them off. First one, marketing. We know what they do generally, right? Product design, ads, promotion. But what's their directive to operations? What are they asking for?
Well, marketing is basically the customer's voice inside the company. And they're the architect of the promise the company makes.
Okay.
So they tell operations what to make, how it should look, how it should work, what features it needs.
So they set the specs.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
think about the implications. If marketing designs some super complex, highly customizable product, maybe something you can configure online with a million options, they're essentially telling operations, okay, you need to be flexible. Forget pure efficiency. We need variety.
Which costs more.
Usually. Yeah. Or, conversely, if marketing decides the market wants a bare-bones, no-frills, high-volume product, like think basic white T-shirts, then they're mandating ruthless standardization from operations, cut complexity, maximize throughput.
So marketing throws down the first challenge. They define the what?
They set the parameters
And
for
the-
the deliverable.
And the
Yes.
complexity of that what? The product design that often directly drives the complexity and therefore the cost inside operations.
Absolutely. Direct link.
Which leads us naturally to the next pillar, human resources, HR.
Right.
If marketing wants that complex, maybe technically advanced product, HR's got a job to do.
A specific, often difficult job. HR needs to attract, keep, and develop the people, the human capital, needed to actually execute that operations strategy. So follow the logic. If the overall strategy is cost leadership being the cheapest, operations will want processes that need minimal training. They'll want largely unskilled or semi-skilled labor to keep those wage costs way down.
Right. Easy to hire, easy to train.
Exactly. So HR then has to focus on high-volume, standardized recruitment. Think fast food chains, large factories, very efficient hiring processes. We'll touch on McDonald's later. It's a prime example.
Okay.
But if the strategy is differentiation, aiming for uniqueness, quality,
Then you need different people.
totally different. HR suddenly needs to find highly specialized engineers, maybe artisans, skilled technicians, people who command much higher salaries.
And that puts immediate cost pressure back onto operations.
Right away. You can't differentiate with unique talent on a rock-bottom budget. HR's challenge reflects the core strategy.
Makes sense. Okay. Pillar number 3, Finance. Can't do much without them.
The indispensable function, yes.
They handle the money, right? Funding, cash flow, managing risk. How do they influence operations strategically? Not just day-to-day budgets, but the big picture.
Well, finance provides the fuel, the money, obviously. They also act as the brakes, sometimes the emergency brake. Strategic operations, the kind that builds long-term advantage, often needs huge capital investment. Think about building a massive automated factory for cost leadership,
Okay, yeah, big bucks.
or setting up complex global supply chain software, or funding a big R&D department needed for differentiation. These are enormous bets.
And finance decides if the company can afford to make those bets.
Exactly. They determine capital availability.
Yeah.
They assess the risk. Is this investment too risky? Will it pay off? A finance department that's solely focused on, say, short-term profits or minimizing capital spending
Yeah.
can effectively kill a long-term operations strategy. They can hamstring operations, preventing those crucial investments needed to either achieve massive scale for cost leadership or to develop the innovative features needed for differentiation.
So finance isn't just counting beans, they're enabling or constraining the strategic path.
Absolutely. Their risk tolerance and investment horizon are critical strategic inputs for operations.
Okay, so we've got marketing setting the what, HR providing the who, finance controlling the how much, which brings us to the fourth function, operations itself, the fulfillment engine.
The fulfillment engine, that's a good way to put it. Operations takes the specs from marketing, the money allocated by finance, and the people hired and trained by HR,
Right.
and physically combines them, synthesizes them into the actual good or service the customer receives.
This is where it all comes together, or falls apart.
It is absolutely the moment of truth. Operations is the function that physically makes the thing or delivers the service exactly as requested, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah, if marketing promises, say, 2-hour delivery,
Okay.
operations has to design and run a logistics network, vans, drivers, warehouses, tracking systems that can actually achieve that speed consistently, profitably.
That's a huge operational challenge.
Huge. Or if finance comes down and says, we need a 15% cut in production costs by next quarter,
Oh.
operations has to scramble, redesign workflows, find cheaper suppliers, maybe automate something. They're constantly reacting to the promises made by marketing and the budgets enforced by finance.
Always squeezed in the middle.
Often feels that way. So the strategic role of operations is to make sure that fulfillment engine doesn't just run day to day,
Right.
but runs in perfect alignment with the company's overall long-term goal. Building that capability, that alignment, that's the strategy.
Okay, that clarifies the context. Now let's pivot from those daily pressures to the strategic mandate itself. We're talking long-term blueprint here, not just, fixing a leak or managing a shift schedule.
Correct. Moving beyond the immediate fires.
So what does this long-term strategic role actually involve? What does it look like in practice?
Well, the strategic role of operations management is all about establishing that long-term approach, setting a future direction, a trajectory for managing the operations processes themselves.
Okay, managing the process.
It's about building capabilities within the operation, things that are hard for competitors to copy, deep-seated ways of working. And this capability, it's generally managed across 3 core pillars or areas of focus.
3 pillars, okay.
And the strategy lies in how you balance these pillars.
Got it. Let's dig into those. Pillar number 1, efficiency. This seems, well, obvious. Businesses want to be efficient. But strategically, over the long haul, what does that really mean for operations?
Strategic efficiency is more than just cutting waste today. It's about capacity utilization and throughput over time.
Capacity utilization, meaning how much of your factory or service potential you're actually using.
Exactly. And throughput is how much stuff you can push through the system. So strategically, it's about how well you use all your resources, your inputs, labor, capital, materials, to maximize the outputs you can actually sell.
Right, more output for less input.
Fundamentally. But the strategic lens means looking years ahead, asking questions like, how can we automate this process 5 years from now? How do we optimize the factory layout, not just for today's products, but for future ones? How do we standardize service protocols to consistently reduce the time or effort needed per customer interaction?
Thinking ahead.
Always. And if your core strategy is cost leadership,
Being the cheapest.
then efficiency becomes the absolute god metric. It trumps almost everything else. It demands minimal buffer inventory, incredibly streamlined processes, running machines flat out, super high utilization rates.
Okay, but that immediately raises a conflict, doesn't it? If you're that ruthlessly efficient, aren't you likely to cut corners on quality or lose flexibility?
You've hit the core tension. Absolutely. And that leads us straight to the second pillar, quality.
Okay.
Strategically, quality is about defining, setting, and consistently maintaining standards. It's about meeting, or hopefully exceeding, the expectations that marketing promised the customer.
So it's not just checking things at the end.
No. For a strategic operations manager, quality isn't an afterthought, like a final inspection station. It has to be built into the process design from the start.
How so?
Well, think about sourcing materials, training staff, designing workflows. Quality considerations have to be embedded everywhere. But here's the tension you just mentioned. High quality often costs more.
Right.
It might require more expensive inputs, better materials. It often needs more stringent testing, more checks. Sometimes it needs slower, more careful, maybe even manual craftsmanship.
Things that are inherently inefficient.
Precisely. They work directly against pure efficiency. So a business that's committed to a differentiation strategy, competing on superior quality or features, must be willing to accept lower process efficiency in some areas if that's what it takes to achieve the superior quality that justifies their premium price.
So that initial strategic choice cost or differentiation, it basically dictates how you're allowed to trade off efficiency versus quality.
It sets the rules of the game for operations. Absolutely.
Yeah. Efficiency, quality. What's the third pillar?
The third pillar is production itself, or more broadly, the delivery of the good or service.
So the actual making or doing.
Yes. It encompasses your capacity, how much can you make or deliver, and your capability, what can you make or deliver. Strategically managing production means ensuring you can meet fluctuating demand. It involves managing inventory levels effectively. And, really critically, it means being able to adapt to changes in the market.
Adaptability. That sounds like differentiation territory.
It often is. If the market demands rapid innovation, new features all the time, think smartphones,
Yeah.
then operations needs flexible production systems. Systems capable of quick changeovers, retooling easily, handling smaller batch sizes perhaps. That flexibility is key for differentiation.
The flip side, for cost leadership.
If the market demands a massive volume at the lowest possible cost, think basic commodities maybe,
Okay.
then operations has to invest in highly specialized, often very inflexible machinery. Equipment that can maybe only do one thing, but it can do it millions of times, cheaper than anyone else on the planet.
So high volume, low flexibility. The opposite.
Exactly. The production strategy directly reflects the overall competitive strategy.
Okay, so summing this up, by strategically managing efficiency, quality, and production capability, operations is basically controlling the company's ability to actually deliver on its competitive promise.
You got it. It's the mechanism that turns the promise into reality and determines if that reality is profitable.
It ensures the marketing slogan isn't just hot air.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It ensures the promise is not just possible, but also profitable and, crucially, sustainable over the long run. The overall business outcome, market share, profit, customer loyalty, it's fundamentally shaped by how well operations manages that strategic balance between those three pillars.
Okay, this is making sense. Now, since many listening appreciate, a clear structure.
A framework.
Yeah, a framework. Let's look at the roadmap or the mental model that operations managers actually use to organize this huge, complex function. Our sources kind of distill this down into 4 guiding questions or sections a manager needs to constantly address.
Right, this framework is really useful. It helps managers bridge the gap between that high-level abstract strategy and the tangible actions they need to take on the ground.
Okay, what's the first section?
The first is role, which actually we've just spent a good chunk of time discussing.
Okay. Defining the purpose.
Exactly. It asks the fundamental question, what is the overall strategic contribution of the operations function? What are we trying to achieve long term? Is it cost minimization? Is it quality leadership? Is it flexibility? It anchors everything back to that core strategic intent managing efficiency and quality for competitive advantage.
So you start with why are we here, strategically speaking?
You have to. Otherwise, everything else is just activity without purpose.
Right. So once the role is clear, the manager needs to look inward at the mechanics. Which brings us to section 2, processes.
Processes. This is the nuts and bolts, the how. This part asks, what are the specific steps, the systems, the workflows that a good manager needs to ensure are happening effectively inside the operation?
Okay, like the actual factory layout or service script?
Exactly. It covers critical internal mechanics like capacity planning. How much can we realistically produce or serve? How do we match capacity to expected demand?
Right.
Inventory management. How much raw material, work in progress, or finished goods should we hold? Where should we hold it? Too much ties up cash. Too little risks stockouts.
A constant balancing act.
Always. And workflow design. What's the physical layout of the factory floor? What's the sequence of steps in delivering a service? How do we make it smooth, efficient, and high quality?
So designing the engine itself.
Designing the engine and tuning it. Strategic process design might mean making big shifts, like moving from making things in batches to a continuous flow system to really boost efficiency.
Like an assembly line versus a workshop.
Kinda, yeah. Or in a service context, it might mean completely rewriting the script your call center agents use to improve customer satisfaction scores, even if each call takes a bit longer. That's a process change driven by a differentiation strategy.
Got it. Processes are the internal how, but as we know, the world doesn't stand still.
Never does.
So no matter how perfectly you design those processes, the environment changes, which forces the manager to focus on the third section, influences.
Influences. This is the reality check.
Yeah.
The outside world and sometimes the inside world intruding.
Okay.
Influences are basically any factor, internal or external, that forces a manager to rethink and potentially change one or more of those internal processes they just designed.
And these can come from anywhere.
Anywhere and everywhere. And they
Yeah.
can be overwhelming sometimes. Think about external pressures. New government regulations on emissions or safety, unexpected supply chain chaos like a global pandemic shutting down ports, or a geopolitical conflict disrupting key shipping lanes.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of that recently.
We certainly have. Or maybe the rapid emergence of a totally new disruptive technology that makes your current way of doing things obsolete overnight.
Okay, those are external shocks. What about internal influences?
Just as powerful. Maybe finance suddenly imposes aggressive new cost-cutting targets across the board.
Right, the budget hammer falls.
Or maybe HR reports that they're facing massive skill shortages in the labor market for the type of technicians you need. That directly impacts your ability to run your processes.
So influences are the drivers of change, the things you have to react to.
Precisely. So let's say an influence hits, maybe a key raw material, suddenly gets incredibly expensive because of new tariffs.
Okay.
The operations manager can't just ignore that and carry on with the existing process that relies heavily on that material. It's no longer viable. They must adapt.
They need a plan B.
They need a response, which leads directly and logically to the fourth and final section of the roadmap, strategies.
Okay. So strategies here aren't the big overall company strategy, but the operational responses.
Exactly. Strategies in this context, within this framework, are the set of choices, the options available to the operations manager to respond to an influence, which will likely involve changing some processes, with the ultimate goal of improving business performance again.
This is where the manager actually makes decisions to steer the ship.
This is where the rubber meets the road, as they say. It's the toolkit for competitive response. If that influence of rising labor costs hits,
Yeah.
one strategy might be to invest heavily in automation to reduce reliance on labor. If a competitor introduces a killer new feature, a strategy might be to rapidly retool a production line to match or exceed it. But here's the key point. All these specific, tactical operational strategies, they must ultimately align with and support one of those two overarching dominant corporate strategies we started with.
Cost leadership or differentiation.
Exactly. The big choice dictates which tools from the operational strategy toolkit the manager is even allowed to pick up. You can't use a differentiation tool if your mandate is cost leadership and vice versa. It forces alignment.
Okay, this connects it all nicely. This is where it gets really practical, I think. A company can talk a big game about being innovative or being affordable.
Slogans are easy.
Right. But it's the operational strategy that locks them into that promise or reveals they can't actually deliver it. Let's start with the first path, the discipline of cost leadership.
Discipline is the right word. Cost leadership is an unforgiving strategy. It's a very deliberate, strategic decision to compete primarily, almost entirely, based on achieving the absolute lowest average cost of production in your market or industry.
Lowest average cost, not just low price.
Lowest average cost is the means. Low price is usually the result. The goal is often to gain massive market share by attracting the most price-sensitive customers. And achieving that lowest cost requires total, unwavering commitment from operations.
So for the operations manager, the focus completely shifts, right? Away from things like flexibility or customization or fancy features.
Out the window.
And towards just relentless optimization, squeezing every last bit of cost out. What does that mean specifically? What are the mandates?
The manager's attention becomes like a laser beam, just focused on minimizing every single expenditure related to making and delivering the product or service. This involves several key interlocking operational commitments.
Okay, like what?
First, sourcing cheaper inputs, and not just slightly cheaper, but often finding the most basic, standardized, commodity-grade inputs possible. Things you can buy in absolutely enormous volumes to leverage purchasing power and get rock-bottom prices from suppliers.
Bulk buying on steroids.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Second, increasing efficiency in the manufacturing processes themselves. This is about minimizing any downtime. Running specialized machines at the absolute maximum rated capacity, 247 if possible. And meticulously analyzing every single step in the workflow to eliminate any movement, any action, any delay that doesn't directly add value to the final product.
Lean manufacturing principles taken to the extreme.
Exactly. And third, related to that, reducing wastage becomes almost an existential issue.
Why existential?
Because under a cost leadership strategy, the profit margins are typically razor thin, sometimes fractions of a cent per unit. So every kilogram of wasted material, every minute of idle labor time, every returned product due to a defect. It's not just a small problem. It's a direct hit to the tiny profit margin. Too much waste, and you're losing money.
Okay, so efficiency, cheap inputs, no waste. But how do they achieve that lowest average cost? This is where the technical side comes in, right? The source highlights a core mechanism, economies of scale. We should probably unpack that a bit.
Yes, economies of scale. This is the operational superpower, the secret weapon of the successful cost leader. It's a fundamental economic principle. It basically means that as the scale of your operations increases, as you produce more and more and more units, the average cost of producing each individual unit goes down, often dramatically.
More volume equals lower cost per item? Why does that happen?
It happens mainly through two drivers. The first one is what you might call fixed cost amortization, or spreading your fixed costs.
Fixed costs. Like the cost of building the factory or buying that huge expensive machine.
Exactly. Those costs don't change whether you produce 1 unit or 1,000,000 units. So let's say you invest $10 million in a giant, highly specialized, super efficient widget-making machine. That's your fixed cost.
Okay.
If you only manage to produce and sell 10,000 widgets using that machine over its lifetime,
Yeah.
then the fixed cost allocated to each widget is $1,000. $10 million divided by 10,000.
Yeah.
It's a huge cost per item.
Right. Makes the widgets expensive.
But if you're a cost leader operating at massive scale and you use that same $10 million machine to produce, say, 10 million widgets,
Okay.
now the fixed cost allocated to each widget drops to just a single dollar. $10 million divided by 10 million.
Wow, huge difference.
Massive.
Right.
Only companies operating at enormous scale can afford to make those huge upfront investments in the most efficient, specialized, but often inflexible production technology, because they know they can spread that cost over millions of units. Smaller players can't afford the machine in the first place.
So scale unlocks investment and efficiency. What's the second driver?
The second big driver is purchasing power, which links back to what we said about sourcing input.
The bulk buying again?
Exactly. But on an industrial scale, when a company like ALDI or Walmart or a giant fast food chain buys ingredients or merchandise, they are negotiating volumes that smaller competitors, like a local grocery store or a single restaurant, couldn't even dream of matching. They secure deep discounts, long-term contracts. They might even dictate terms to suppliers.
They have immense bargaining power.
Immense. This means their variable cost, the cost of the actual materials in each product, is inherently lower from the start. This creates a cost floor, a minimum cost level, that smaller competitors simply cannot reach, even if they were somehow just as efficient internally. That operational scale advantage in purchasing becomes their competitive moat. It protects their low prices.
Okay, that makes the how much clearer. The examples given in the source really bring this home. ALDI is mentioned.
Textbook cost leader. Their entire operation is visibly designed for low cost. Limited product range, smaller stores, often in cheaper locations, goods displayed in their shipping cartons to save stocking labor, super fast checkouts.
And frills. At all.
Zero frills. Every aspect of the operation is geared towards minimizing costs to support their price proposition. The reject shop is similar in its category.
Right. Discount retail.
Yeah, buying clearance lines, opportunistic buys, basic store fit-outs. Again, operations focus purely on enabling a low price point.
And then there's the really interesting case study mentioned, McDonald's. The source specifically lists them under cost leadership.
Yes, which sometimes surprises people because they're such a huge brand.
And it mentions those two video titles. Why is the food at McDonald's so cheap? And Inside Hamburger University, that pairing seems revealing.
It really is. It perfectly illustrates how McDonald's leverages its operational processes for cost efficiency on a global scale.
It's not just cheap food, it's incredibly consistently cheap food everywhere.
And consistency is the operational key to their low cost. Think about what that extreme standardization allows them to eliminate.
Complexity.
Bingo. Complexity is the enemy of cost leadership. If every single hamburger, everywhere in the world, is made using the exact same pre-portioned ingredients,
Right.
cooked on specialized equipment for the exact same amount of time, and assembled in the exact same sequence by staff following a strict process,
Yeah.
they achieve two massive operational advantages. First, they dramatically reduce the need for highly skilled and therefore expensive kitchen staff. The system provides the skill, not the individual employee. Training is faster and cheaper,
Okay. Lowers labor costs.
significantly.
Hmm.
Second, that standardization drastically reduces waste and variability.
Mm-hmm.
Fewer errors, less food spoilage, more predictable output. This means less need for intensive supervision and fewer costly mistakes. That's a critical cost saving when you operate at their scale.
And Hamburger University, that fits right in.
It's the mechanism for embedding and replicating that standardized operational process globally. They're not just teaching people how to flip burgers. They're teaching managers how to run the entire McDonald's operating system.
Training them to manage a highly specialized, low flexibility, high throughput machine.
Precisely. A machine optimized purely for cost efficiency and unwavering consistency. That's deep operational commitment to cost leadership. It's the foundation that allows them to leverage those massive economies of scale and efficiency gains to offer prices that many competitors just can't sustain.
Wow. Okay, so that's one path. Simplify, standardize, scale up, and win on price. Crystal clear. But
Mhm.
what if a business decides that's not their game? What if they decide price is secondary? That perceived value is what matters.
Then they take the other fork in the road.
Yeah.
That leads us to the counter strategy, differentiation of goods and services. This is a strategic decision to compete primarily based on something other than price, offering unique quality, innovative features, superior service, maybe a strong brand image, something that makes customers perceive your offering as distinct and better than competitors, even if it costs more.
So the customer is willing to pay a premium.
Exactly, because the operations function has successfully delivered something they value highly, something superior, unique, faster, more reliable, or maybe custom designed just for them.
This sounds like it requires a completely different operational mindset, like a 180-degree turn from cost leadership.
It really is. The operational priorities have to pivot completely. Suddenly, the main goal isn't cutting costs above all else.
What is it then?
It's managing complexity, ensuring exceptional quality assurance, and fostering innovation. The operations manager in a company pursuing differentiation has to accept higher costs per unit in many areas.
Except higher costs. That sounds counterintuitive for a business.
It does, but it's necessary. Their focus shifts to maximizing quality, however the company defines that. And they need to be incredibly adept at managing the constant changes associated with innovation, launching new products, incorporating new technologies, adding features.
So flexibility becomes key again.
Flexibility and the ability to integrate closely with R&D and marketing become paramount. Those replace standardization and sheer scale as the core operational metrics to watch.
Okay, the source outlines quite a few specific ways that operations can actually achieve this differentiation. It shows how broad this strategy can be.
Yes, these different methods really highlight the intense operational focus and investment required. It's not just one thing. For example, differentiation might come from better quality.
Like higher grade materials or craftsmanship.
Exactly, which means operationally you need to establish relationships with premium suppliers, maybe even custom suppliers. These inputs will be far more expensive than the commodity stuff the cost leader buys. It also usually means implementing much tighter, more frequent quality control checks throughout the process, not just at the end. And sometimes it requires manual skills, artisanal processes that deliberately slow things down but ensure that superior finish.
So investing in quality inputs and processes. What else?
Or maybe the differentiation is faster delivery. Think Amazon Prime, perhaps, or emergency courier services.
Okay, speed as the differentiator.
Right. Operationally, this demands an incredibly complex, agile, and often expensive logistics network. You need sophisticated tracking, optimized routing, maybe strategically located warehouses, dedicated transport. All things that incur higher costs than the slower bulk shipping methods a cost leader would prefer.
Investing in speed and responsiveness.
Yes. Then we also see differentiation achieved through custom design products, letting customers personalize or configure their orders.
Like building your own computer online or bespoke tailoring.
Perfect examples. Operationally, this means your processes have to be inherently modular and flexible. You need to be able to switch production setups quickly, handle lots of variations, manage complex component inventories. This usually means producing in much smaller batches or even one-offs.
Which means you completely forego those economies of scale we talked about.
Absolutely. You sacrifice scale efficiency for customization flexibility. The complexity is deliberately managed because the customer values that personalization and pays a premium for it. Offering more features and applications is similar. It adds complexity that operations must manage.
Okay. What about technology?
Crucial for many differentiators. Operational commitment to the incorporation of new technology is key. This could mean constantly investing in the latest bleeding-edge machinery or software, even if it becomes obsolete quickly. Because that new tech might enable a unique feature or performance level that gives you a temporary but valuable advantage over competitors. It's the polar opposite of the cost leader strategy of buying proven, long-lasting, maybe less advanced machinery and running it for decades to amortize the cost.
So high-tech churn for features versus long-term low-cost assets.
Exactly.
Wow.
And finally, differentiation can also be built on trust and aesthetics. Things like more reliability.
Like a car known for never breaking down.
Right, which operationally demands superior components, maybe redundant systems, rigorous testing, and excellent maintenance processes, all costly. Or differentiation through clever designs, products that are beautiful, ergonomic, or functionally elegant.
Like high-end electronics or furniture.
Yes, and achieving those clever designs often requires complex assembly processes, specialized tooling, maybe unique materials that are hard to work with. Again, operations has to master that complexity.
It really is a different world. Let's use the examples from the source to make this even clearer. Apple and Samsung are mentioned as differentiators.
Classic examples in tech. Their operations aren't primarily focused on being the cheapest. Think about Apple. Their operations have to be masters of secrecy to protect new designs before launch.
Right, the legendary secrecy.
They need to manage incredibly complex global supply chains to source cutting-edge components, like new types of glass for screens or custom-designed processors. They need to coordinate manufacturing with partners like Foxconn to ensure massive, simultaneous product launches worldwide.
And they accept the huge R&D costs.
Yes, the high R&D investment and the complex supply chain management are accepted costs because the perceived value, the design, the ecosystem, the features allows them to command premium prices and margins.
Okay, contrast that with another example given. Rolex. Luxury watches.
Very different type of differentiation. Rolex isn't competing on adding new electronic features every year like Apple. Their differentiation is built on heritage, timeless design, perceived quality, and mechanical perfection.
Right, craftsmanship.
Exactly. So their operations must maintain almost artisanal standards, ensuring every tiny component meets incredibly exacting specifications. This likely prevents a lot of automation. It demands highly skilled watchmakers. Their operational priority is achieving perfection and consistency over decades, not maximizing hourly throughput.
So quality and legacy over speed and features? Still differentiation.
Absolutely. And the service industry gives us good examples too. Qantas is mentioned.
Australia's flag carrier airline.
Right. They differentiate against budget airlines based on perceived service quality, a better safety record perhaps, network reach, and reliability. Operationally, this requires a huge commitment.
How so?
Rigorous, proactive aircraft maintenance schedules that likely exceed basic regulatory requirements. Extensive ongoing training for pilots and cabin crew, which is an HR operations link focused on quality. Sophisticated operational planning systems to minimize delays and cancellations. All of these are expensive operational choices that a low-cost carrier deliberately chooses not to make to the same extent.
Investing in reliability and service.
Yes. And one more, David Jones, the Australian department store.
High-end retail.
Their differentiation comes from the shopping environment itself, the store ambiance, the curated selection of premium brands, knowledgeable staff providing personalized service. Operationally, this means investing in expensive store fit-outs and visual merchandising. It means managing a very diverse inventory with many low-volume, high-value items. And crucially, it means prioritizing customer experience metrics like interaction quality, perhaps even over pure staff efficiency metrics like transactions per hour. It's a fundamentally different operational philosophy compared to the reject shop we mentioned earlier.
It really paints a clear picture. In differentiation, the operations manager needs to be almost like a pioneer, constantly managing change, championing quality and innovation.
Yes. Whereas in cost leadership, the operations manager needs to be that ruthless efficiency expert focused on optimization and standardization. The whole DNA of the operations function, the culture, the metrics, it's completely different depending on which path the company chooses.
And it sounds like trying to do both at the same time would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible.
That's the core argument. In their purest forms, the operational requirements are often mutually exclusive.
Mm.
If a true cost leader, like ALDI, suddenly decided to invest heavily in the complexity needed for deep customization or premium in-store service,
Yeah.
their entire low-cost, high-efficiency structure would likely collapse under the weight of those added costs and complexities. They'd lose their core advantage.
And the other way?
Conversely, if a high differentiator, maybe like Apple or Rolex, suddenly decided to slash R&D, use cheaper materials, and standardize everything just to chase the absolute lowest price point, they would destroy the very basis of their brand appeal. They'd eliminate the reason customers were willing to pay a premium in the first place. The strategic choice usually demands focus. Hashtag outro.
Okay, this deep dive has really hammered home that operations management isn't just some, back office administrative task.
Far from it.
It's truly the strategic heart of the business. So for you listening, I think the key takeaway is to always look past the advertising and try to spot that core strategic tension within a company. Is their entire system, their operational engine, fundamentally designed to achieve the lowest possible cost through standardization and massive scale?
A cost leadership path.
Or is it fundamentally designed to deliver some kind of unique value through complexity, quality, innovation, service, customization that justifies a higher price?
The differentiation path.
And we really need to reiterate that crucial point. Operations management is the function that takes the grand corporate strategy, the one likely dreamed up by marketing and funded by finance, and turns it into physical, tangible reality.
It's where the strategy lives or dies.
Yeah.
The long-term success or failure of the business really hinges on that deep, consistent operational commitment to one of those two fundamental paths.
It's actually fascinating when you start looking at companies through this lens. You can often diagnose their true strategic priorities much faster by observing their operations, how their stores look, how their service works, the types of products they offer, rather than just listening to their marketing slogans.
Actions, or rather operational structures, speak louder than words.
Definitely. Which brings us to maybe one final provocative thought for you to chew on as you observe companies out there in the world. We've pretty rigorously established cost leadership and differentiation as these fundamentally opposing operational strategies, demanding different structures, skills, investments.
Mutually exclusive in many ways, yes.
So the question is, can a company genuinely pursue and achieve both things simultaneously over the long term? Can they really be a true cost leader with all the standardization and razor-thin margins that implies, and simultaneously be a high differentiator with the heavy R&D, customization, premium quality, and higher costs that requires?
The stuck-in-the-middle problem or the holy grail.
Yeah, think about the massive and conflicting investments needed for each. McDonald's operational rigor, as we discussed, is what keeps costs low, but it inherently prevents deep customization.
Right.
Apple's constant R&D and premium components drive differentiation, but they prevent Apple from ever being the market leader on low price.
Pro.
So is there some magical operational mechanism, some secret sauce that allows a business to truly leverage the scale advantages of cost leadership while also maintaining the flexibility, innovation, and quality needed for genuine differentiation? Or does that strategic commitment ultimately always demand a hard choice? Pick a lane.
That's a great question to leave people with. Your challenge: observe the companies you interact with every day. Where do they seem to sit on that spectrum between pure cost leadership and pure differentiation? And if you find examples that seem to be doing both, are they truly succeeding at both in a sustainable way? Or have they perhaps just found a temporary, maybe vulnerable sweet spot in the market? Is it truly sustainable, or is focus the only path to long-term victory?
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the strategic choices within operations.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.